Hello guys, David Vose here. Man, we're looking at some clear blue skies and another day of the sun being on the opposite side of the bright side of the moon. Up in the sky. I don't even understand why other people don't see what I'm saying. But enough about the moon or a clan of vampires that have taken over the world, because you won't believe me if I told you. How about World War II? What effect did it have on world affairs, our own minds, our wills, our disposition to live? And why was this war occurring some generation ago that many of our great-grandfathers served in, and even our grandfathers? Well, they made an atomic bomb. Remember, at the time, it was a device for creating what alchemists, Kabbalists, and some Masons, and some Mormons call the primordial matter. And not only that, they destroyed some of it too. Do you realize that when we split the atom, if we did, I don't believe a darn word that anybody says anymore. But we did see a big boom over there in Nagasaki, right? Looked like any other boom to me. But after the boom, you see bodies laying around, and they're all scorched and burned, just what you would expect if it was just a regular boom. But we're going to call it a primordial matter destroyer. And that means that the United States, or the secret cabal Bavarian weirdos, hopefully not aliens, they succeeded in fracturing the baseline of reality in more than one way. Physically, which may not or may have done something to the physical world we physically live in at the physical moment that we're physically talking here. But we know one thing in the spiritual sense, and that's how the Bible works too, isn't it? Right? It's like a literal happening, a type. That's just a type. What is a type? Well, you write with types, and you have typewriters. So if you want to say something, you can't just say it. You got to put it on the paper in a type, right? Like a mold, and stamp it and say, oh, that is a symbol that we have put on a piece of paper, but not with any man's imagination or with a crayon. That would be childlike. But no, it is a stamp. It is universally known. That is a symbol for that letter. Which, what does that letter mean? I don't know. We put it together with some other letters, and we take you to school, and we tell you what all these letters mean when you put them together. And sometimes they change the meaning. Like a year later, what is cool is now hot. And what is bad is now good. We have to change the language. So, yes, they succeeded in fracturing the baseline of reality a generation ago. Of course, they were working on it. Who? They. A group of people who were descendants of some guy named Satan? I don't know. But probably the flesh, which is represented by the type, as we already stated. The type perhaps being Cain. But this material is precious because I like my body. And even if my body's wayward and follows after its selfish interests, I forgive my body because I want to cleanse this body. I'll go take a bath if I get in the mud. And if I want to purify the elements, I might run it through the fire a couple of times. But you see, baseline reality is our perception, our beliefs, our acceptance to do what we're told. Like there might have been a time when people were free and they wouldn't kowtow to a man in a black suit. And there was probably a time when black-suited men didn't even know that a black suit had anything to do with Aleister Crowley or the black darkness of night cloaking your white, pure, eternal living soul, which is immortal. You know, I don't know whether we go to get a white robe from Peter at the pearly gates, or whether it's simply when you get to the gate, Peter says, you idiot, take off that black robe, because underneath you're as pure as cotton, just picked from the field. Or, well, maybe that wouldn't be so pure, but it would be natural, wouldn't it? And that's what we are, pure as the sunshine that shines down from the sky. You've got to take off the cloak, brother. You got to stop going to the religion, man. You got to stop being anointed by the man who knows nothing about anointing, because the anointing comes down from the heights upon your head. The heights is another one of these baseline realities we know nothing of. But we were taught rock and roll by Anton LaVey. Levi is a priest, right, from the old priesthood, because you see, you can't make a religion and become the priest of a religion if you're not of this particular line. And if you think today we're living in a world where we're not Judean anymore, but we're all Christian, or maybe we're just all Satanists. But all of those three, modern Christianity, not the followers of Jesus in the first century, but modern Christianity in these little World Council of Churches organizations, harlots of the Great Mother in Jerusalem, they all agree that we must punish, must have prisons, must have wars. They just believe in different reasons to go to war. After all, if you didn't have different reasons to go to war, you wouldn't go to war. If everybody had the same reason for going to war, there would be nothing to fight about. So everybody's got to be taught some other particular idea. Did you know Islam was originally a Christian sect that the Catholic Church went in and cultivated? And so the Quran may have been inspired by the divine himself, but the organizations, the Sufis and the Sunnis and all of the different groups were certain churches, just like, somebody said the other day, I think it was my good friend on the other, channel of the Sons of Ministries, but he says that the Presbyterians are preterists, and they are the ones who created the United States government and signed off on it. Well, I guess they were the ones who made the first Continental Constitution and were members of those who signed the Declaration. By the way, Hancock, remember that guy that wrote his big old signature on the Constitution? Well, his descendants became Mormons. John Hancock's children became Mormons, followed Joseph Smith, and they ended up going out to Utah. And it's a couple of kids later, a man named Mosiah Hancock, he writes this biography that lots of people read. It's very interesting, and it records a prophecy of Joseph Smith. But this Thomas Hancock is the uncle of the man who signed the Declaration of Independence, John Hancock. Well, that's that prophecy that we talked about the other day. It was talking about the United Order in Snowflake, Arizona. This is the guy who got a map, and Joseph Smith put his finger somewhere near Snowflake, Arizona, between there and Mexico, the border, in southeast Arizona and northwest New Mexico. And he says that's where the saints will gather and do the United Order in the latter days. But they won't be Mormons, because many of the Mormon peoples will become high in positions of power in the world, and the Constitution will be hanging by a thread. How did you know that, Mr. Joseph Smith? Well, I'll tell you. There's a lot of things, a lot of hanky-panky. A lot of you Mormons don't realize who Brigham Young was. He created the Masonic branch in the West. There is a other Masonic branch in the East, which is run by several organizations, one of which is Jehovah's Witnesses, who runs a lot of the things going on in Hollywood, and they are managerial and CEOs of multi-billion-dollar corporations. And Jehovah's Witnesses is a multi-billion-dollar corporate stomping grounds or headquarters for the CEOs and the owners of major companies and multi-billion-dollar billionaires that want their children in an organization that keeps their women home and not running around, and their children quiet, and a group of individuals that the powerful, the devil, of course, who runs this world, wants people that obey, that can take orders, that are under some oath, that maybe have gone to another country and learned how to speak another language. And they recruit them, whether they be Mormon or Jehovah's Witnesses, in various positions. The religions are literally created. Sometimes they're created for some specific reason. Scientology is created to be like a lawyer, mafia-style ACLU for the important, powerful Bavarians. And they're like it's like a little mafia where if you're wanting to create an organization, like say Dr. Berg wants to sell you some pills, he wants to be able to get legal prescriptions or licensees to do these things, to make these pills, to manufacture this, to skate through a law that forbids us peasants from doing anything. He gets through the crack because he's a member of the mafia called the Scientology. Now, it was one of the high-ups in Scientology that, with Derek Bros, started this whole thing you see today that is causing riots. I ought to know because I was there with one of the first ones in Albuquerque and watched them flip over the cars and burn down the buildings. And the word on the street was, as we were walking, and I had never even heard of him at the time, was that this was Derek Bros' organization called Anonymous. And right after that, Anonymous, then founded by Derek Bros and the Scientologists, who, by the way, gave the Scientologist church, gave Derek Bros a very amazing, luxurious home in Arizona to live in for free, and gave his wife a gold necklace, which had the symbols for pedophilia in bold, enormous, ungodly shape, like bulging right in the crevice of her chest, was this golden symbol for pedophilia. And she was wearing black from her head to her toe, as well as Derek. I don't know what that was all about. But friends, he works for the CIA and is the right-hand man for Bill Gates, as you see on the many television clips where he went to Congress, Derek, and argued for the right of Bill Gates to be able to rob and pillage and spy on you in your computer. And he's the one who pushed that through. But he's wearing all black. And his woman is sitting there wearing all black, and she's wearing this golden pedophilia symbol around her neck. And it was given to her, and she was told to wear it by the Scientologists. Now, I'm getting off here. But how many people know that we didn't win the war in World War II? How many people know that by the time they had the war, the reason they had the war on that kind of scale, because you see, even human beings of their own volition and by natural causes would never have gotten to that point. It was a gradual buildup, carefully organized by Satan himself. You know, first you needed scientists to pretend they invented something and put it in books and get it unified and taught to all the students. And the students have to be regimentized. So you've got to have kindergarten, you will comply, all the way through university to indoctrinate. And by the time, that's why you ever wonder why there's not free college or high, like degrees, because everybody gets education, but they choose the ones or the elites that are going to go on to have the most powerful jobs. You don't get that for free if you're poor. You are offered that by higher ups. They hand out certain, maybe sometimes they will give certain honorary degrees, maybe to certain peasants or minorities. But they're not in the know. They're only usually there for looks, kind of like Paul McCartney being given the title of Lord, right? Or Knight, right? He's knighted. I don't remember if he was a lord or a knight, but these are honorary knighthoods. They're not real. He's not really a knight, Now, yeah, in World War II, they orchestrated a war. Well, give us some proof of that, Dave. Well, okay. The rationalism got to a head with Karl Marx, Kant, and Nietzsche, and Hegel, who said, the Hegelian dialectic, you got to have two sides, and we got to fight it out and argue it. So we got to have communism and democracy fighting, and within the United States, we'll have Republicans and Democrats. We've always got to have these two sides. And sometimes the side is truth and error, and they battle. And they use it as a weapon to weed out human beings and have us battle it in the minds and create a society that they want as an experiment. Now, they may not want the society that we will battle out in our minds, which would come naturally, which should have happened in evolution billions of years ago. But they're only doing it because they don't know what happened billions of years ago, and they want to see. They have to have an experiment. So they make societies that have control, and they use mind control, like the FBI and the CIA. Well, if you're going to have an FBI and a CIA, you need to have organizations that recruit certain individuals that you can trust, because these are the ones going to be torturing you. And we're going to have a coordination with the justice system and the organizations like NSA and FBI and CIA, and secret cults will be able to have secret handshakes and codes and rights and oaths so that we can murder them. Now, the government can't be responsible for murdering you. The government does not murder people. And the government cannot even just go around murdering people. He said, well, I saw somebody got murdered and he was in the mafia and they just killed him. Yeah, because he agreed to be in the mafia. You must agree. They cannot come out into your property. Have you ever wondered why nobody's ever come and just walked up to your door and you opened it and boom, they shot you? Well, that happens. It happens every day. Yeah, but they were in a drug cartel. They have no right to just boom. You pull up on the street, you're in the gas station. You ever see these videos where somebody pulls up, jumps out of his car with a gun and starts shooting? They're in a drug cartel. They've done a dirty deed. They've sold their soul. Okay, so people that are in the government have to have something over them. They have to have made an oath. It has to be legal for them to be murdered. So whenever you see somebody like Bob Larson telling you about UFOs being back engineered, that he did that, this stupid nerd kid with glasses, he back engineered technology from another. What does back engineer mean anyway? You really think they can look at a piece of machinery that can go back in time or go past the speed of light, and they could just like, oh yeah, I see how they do this. Oh, let's make one of these. Do you even think such a thing exists? Something that can go back in time, that can recreate the reality that the divine being made? You ever seen one? If you have never seen anything, don't believe it. Well, anyway, whatever these machines are, and I know something about that because my aunt was the secretary for Lockheed Martin high up, and she had clearance, right? Government clearance and classified clearance, and she knew exactly what they were doing. And she told my mother and I one time when I went down there, I was 10 years old, and she told me about their plans to create a ship that is supersonic and can go like the speed of light and not be tracked by radar, and all these plans that they had. But she said, shh, don't tell anybody. Of course, I was a good little Jehovah's Witness at the time, and I didn't tell anybody. I went right straight back to where I lived and went up on my propane tank and rode it like a cowboy and kicked it and went bang, bang, bang. And then got on my rubber tree and swung around that for a while. went on a little walk and picked some cherries from the cherry tree. I didn't care. But I always kept it in the back of my mind. So World War II was orchestrated by Satan because he runs the world, the deity of this world. And nobody, no king is raised up, no emperor or even a president without the say of Satan. So if Donald Trump has been president, he was positioned there by Satan because Satan is the deity of this world. And Jesus said, stay out of the world, you idiots. You Christians, you think you're Christians and you're in the world politics. Mormons who say, oh, we don't get involved in politics. Jehovah's Witness, oh, we don't get involved in politics. And yet Eisenhower, Jehovah's Witness, was president. And some Mormon guy named Maxwell, the apostle Maxwell, Neil, I think his name, a Mormon prophet, was very high up in the CIA. And in fact, they recruit primarily from Mormons as well as the CIA. And by the way, so does the NHS or the NSH, whatever they call it today, and a lot of other organizations. And I'm going to share some information with you about that. Did you know that it was Mormons who tortured those people in the Gulf War or whatever, when Bush was torturing people, right? And he was taken to court because it was torture, and he went ahead and did it anyway. Well, the people that were doing in the CIA that were doing the torture were Mormons by religion. Yeah. But you see, Jehovah's Witnesses play a part in this. We've talked about the Watchtower Bible Tract Society there across the Brooklyn Bridge, standing, high next to the United Nations building. And right across from that is it used to be the Rockefeller Plaza, but now that's pushed aside, and the Trump Plaza is taking its place, where all the most powerful Bavarians in the world come and enjoy the great plaza as they go across the street to the United Nations to make and work on some very evil, wicked, sinister laws to put in place all around the world to bring the cinches in and tighten it down. Now you say, well, why would Mormons run the world, Dave? Well, as I said, they don't. The Jehovah's Witnesses do as well. And all different ilks of Masons and secret combinations. Societies. Oh yeah, like Jehovah's Witnesses, the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. It's not an organization that sells books. It's a society. A New World Order society. That's what they call themselves. But yeah, secret societies and secret combinations, as the Book of Mormon depicted them. And Joseph Smith said we should have nothing to do with them. So Albert Pike was sent in to reorganize the Masonic group, just as Brigham Young was sent in to reorganize and murder Joseph Smith, and then reorganize that group of people. So all this was going on during the time that a very famous man named Aleister Crowley and Jack Whiteside Parsons were out doing some kind of seance trying to contact the devil. And so they contacted John Keel's alien in the desert. And they contacted this demon right where the bomb would be first ignited or blown up in 1943. So for decades, everybody knew in the world that Aleister Crowley was being guided, and according to him, by some spirit named Aiwas, or Awaz, was a demiurge that gave him ideas. And this is the man who created a school, a secret society, like the Skull and Bones over there at Yale, and they produce all the presidents. Well, Aleister Crowley, working as a spy for the British government and a double agent for the Nazis, was the leader of an organization that spawned Anton LaVey, or Levi Anton, Dr. Anthony Fauci, right? Yeah, the little short guy, Putin's short, Napoleon Bonaparte was short. The guy running the Ukraine is short. And by the way, all this has been going on. I don't know if you know, but the military, the Ukrainian military, is giving up and going over to the Russian side. And the Russians are feeding them and offering them leniency if they desert. And this is going on. So we're days away from Ukraine giving up and losing the war. But what's weird, this stupid Republican Speaker of the House, you thought he was a good guy, right? Fighting against the bad Biden, and he's for Trump. Well, he was put in there by the Bavarians. It's all a big scam. And what does he do when they're about to retreat and lose the war, and they're all deserting? They give them another $60 billion. Where do you think that money's going? It's over. That money is being funneled into their pockets. That man is corrupt, the Speaker of the House. Now I wonder, the guy that they fired, McCartney, he might have been a little bit better than I thought he was since they got rid of him. But Anton LaVey, that's Levi, and so he's a priest. And he's the priest of the Church of Satan, which is only one of these little pretend shows. You know what we were talking about the other day about the curtain in the sanctuary? Well, the temple was, and they always knew it. They know it. These Bavarians know it today. The temple never was a law that we all have to keep. They want you peasants to believe that you're under law. But they knew it was a theater, that it was a theatrical spectacle. It was a parable. It was instructions on something esoteric. Now, think about the song. Good old Frank Sinatra. And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friend, I'll say it clear. I'll state my case of which I'm certain. Yeah, the final curtain, guys. That is the curtain between the holy place and the most holy, and that is your flesh. And so everything that is done on this side of the curtain is a play. This has all been orchestrated. And the clowns to the left and the jokers to the right, friends, they know exactly why they're doing this. So that you'll stand back and say, what is going on? This is crazy. I'm shocked. It's a thriller in Manila. And they want a response. It's a CIA mind control program. It's a psyop. It's a theater. It's an experiment on the human race. Jehovah's Witnesses are a mind control experiment. No, the Mormons don't run the FBI and the CIA. They just recruit them with Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses and Scientologists and whoever's under an oath so that they can murder them if they won't cooperate. If they go up the ladder and start learning stuff and then they want to, renege or go tell somebody, then they get, but they can't those who don't make the sale of their soul. Every one of these individuals, you Mormons, do you understand that if you go into the priesthood, which is, I won't even call it a priesthood, just like Aleister Crowley's priesthood, it's satanic. Aleister Crowley is the one who started the pretend organization called the government, the secret shadow government that started the CIA and that started the FBI, that put apostles of the Mormon Church in the CIA, right? An apostle of the Church of the Mormon LDS Church is CIA. Mitt Romney, his kid, along with Pelosi's kid and Schumer's kid and all these other people's kids, right? With cocaine dust on their nose still. George Bush, whose daddy was the head of the CIA, right? Who masterminded supposedly the murder of John F. Kennedy. And by the way, there's proof that the person who killed John F. Kennedy was sitting in the driver's seat of that car. Also CIA. But it was Aleister Crowley, an agent of the British secret intelligence and a double agent for the German secret intelligence, which means they're all working for the same intelligence. And the KGB and the CIA was created by these same individuals. They're not Mormons. They're in a higher sect called the Billionaires sect, or the elite class of individuals that were called the Royal Bloodlines. Well, when they got the good guys made the Constitution and we got rid of having royal bloods rule over us, and we were told, hey, we have to have a separation between church and state. Now they just have the state be the church and you don't know about it, so that the judge has got a black robe and he slams the hammer down, and this is what we call a hearing. Well, an inquiry, right? The Inquisition was an inquiry on your rights as a human being to worship as you so please. So they came over here and pretended to be other religions because you wanted freedom, right, of belief. So they gave you Presbyterians or preterists, and they gave you plenty of choices, but controlled each and every one of them. Their societies. The Mormon Society, right? It's a kingdom. Jehovah's Witnesses is a society within a society. And there's, the New Age movement. You think it's just a book you bought at the bookstore. Like some lady named Elizabeth Clare Prophet who says she's one of the two witnesses. A liar. That's where you get this idea of the Great White Brotherhood. Why are they white? You idiots. Stop believing in their propaganda and their evil. So they call it the Theosophical Society or whatever now, right? Madame Blavatsky wrote a book, revealed things from the spiritual realms, truth, that even Einstein had a copy of her book upon his table and read it thoroughly. He'd never heard of such things. He was a stupid idiot. They didn't know. But they made stuff up. There is nothing. Like Sitchin and Velenkowski and Donikin are all Lanton LaVey, all of these individuals from the same Bavarian group. They're royal bloodlines that have no more power because of the Constitution. So they snuck in stealthily and created organizations. And those organizations would recruit from society and bring them up the ranks of Satanism. The LDS Church today is Satanism, friends. Jehovah's Witnesses today is Satanism. Yes, they put a face, they look like a lamb, but they speak like a dragon. So Anton LaVey, where did he come from? He was German, British. Little cups, turn them around and around. Where did the little pebble go? It's a game. We don't know. But Aleister Crowley was definitely one of these royal bloodlines that was the son of his daddy, one of these royal bloodlines, that was allowed to become the great beast. Why did he want to be a beast? Because he wanted to fulfill the revelation, because they think it's a theatrical display. The last harvest of the empire, the final curtain. When this curtain drops, friends, we're done. We're going to go beyond the curtain, beyond the veil of this present world, and the veil shall be rent. And that's called the revelation. And the revelation is the reveiling, right? You put another veil, but this one a little more see-through, because we ain't never going to get to see directly into the most holy unless you got faith, brother. So Aleister Crowley had students, Jack Parsons, who made it the space program, right? Not necessarily NASA, but he had a hand in that. And people like Werner von Braun, all these guys were brothers. And they were involved in a seance, you might say. They were a secret society with high-up clearance. getting their instructions through seances, and Satan was orchestrating it all. And so Charles Taze Russell, who died in a Roman toga on October the 31st, Halloween night, in a ritual death murder, whose pyramid is in the biggest Masonic grave cemetery in Philadelphia, up on the pinnacle of the mountain, the chief kahuna of all these, Freemasons who claim to be a Freemason, with this giant pyramid and the all-seeing eye on the top, the bright sun there shining from the top, right on visibly there, with the Egyptian phoenix bird displayed on all of his literature, and the Templar cross and crown. Just as Christian Science literature was shrouded, just as the Mormon temple, the Gothic Mormon temple, is covered with all of this secret handshakes and Mason symbolism. And they recruit then from these groups into the CIA, the NHS, the FBI, because they have oaths. And if you get that high, if you join the FBI, you take oaths. Not only that, you learn regimentary behavior. In your church, you're told what to do. They know you'll take orders to get up the totem pole. You know that guy that was paraded all over the television that he shot Osama bin Laden? That little clean-cut, red-headed, freckled kid? I'd lay odds he was Mormon. If you go back and you look into what, these people that tortured over in Guantanamo Bay, they invented this torture. They were Mormons, CIA. How could you do something like that if you really are believers in the love of Jesus? They don't believe in the love of Jesus. Crowley was guided by a spirit called Aiwass. And from his secret society, his little students, we get Anton LaVey, head of the Satanic Church, L. Ron Hubbard, the head of Scientology, Jack Parsons, that started the space industry and missiles, and this led to NASA, and apostles of the Mormon Church, which were in the early days of the CIA, and Mormons that are used in very high up procedures in the CIA, where they're inventing torture and mind control, and the entire organization is a mind control. And as I've said, Charles Taze Russell lived before Aleister Crowley a little bit. And it was at the time that Charles Taze Russell, just before he died in a Roman toga in a satanic ritual, just at that moment, his sidekick, Joseph Rutherford, who later took over, he was a judge, and he took over the organization through legal means, because these ACLU crackpots, that's what they've always been, they have control in the court system because they're in with them. And so they took over the organization. It was a big legal takeover, just like the Mormons did with Brigham Young. But Rutherford was bringing all these Germans over right at the end of World War I, because after the war, the first time they had a Project Paperclip, shall we say, they were Germans. All of these Germans that Charles Taze Russell brought over, and he brought them to Hollywood, built Hollywood. Charles Taze Russell and the Watchtower and Bible Tract Society and members of the society are the ones who invented the first motion picture companies and the phonograph companies and the record companies and the propaganda. And so the music industry was started by people like Anton LaVey and the Polanski over in Hollywood and all these, people that were being murdered. Charles Manson said that those Sharon Tate and those individuals were murdered because they pissed off the satanic organization of this world. He said he had nothing to do with it, but he was used as a scapegoat because he was staying at the Beach Boys' place and he wrote Beatles songs. And these individuals that were writing the songs for the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Mamas and the Papas and all these others were all getting their job by becoming Satanists. They had to go and bow at the altar of Satan. And Anton LaVey, who was the, I should say, polygamist leader of individuals like Marilyn Monroe and Doris Day and all the rest like that. So the CIA says that in their recruiting thing that you can't be on drugs to join their group. And they say it's antithetical to their organization. But that's kind of weird because they are going out inventing LSD, THC, sodium pentothal, and other drugs that they used to manipulate the human mind. So it was really Mormons then that got Frank Olson on LSD and then somehow coerced him into jumping to his death and then go and hire prostitutes and slip LSD into their drinks, all the while watching behind a one-way glass in Operation Midnight Climax. You Mormons are so spiritual. Well, one CIA agent, George Eastbrooks, said that he could get people to exhibit multiple personalities. And he did it for military intelligence reasons. There was a lady, a model, a beautiful woman named Candy Jones. She claimed to have been one of those people who was programmed by the CIA as one of those manipulated by these practices. So we have eyewitness accounts of this stuff. And you remember Beyonce talking about her alter ego or something? Her name was Sasha. Well, that's interesting because for years the CIA was publicly making it known that there was a Russian spy or some sort of satanic spirit that had, infiltrated the CIA. And they called that crazy force behind the CIA Sasha, like perhaps a demonic creature. Because it's organizations like the Skull of Bones at Yale that influences the OSS and the CIA. And what about J. Edgar Hoover? Did you know that they claim he was a cross-dresser? Well, why are these people cross-dressing like Aleister Crowley, spazzing out on heroin and having all these sexual rituals and stuff? What kind of crap are they pulling here? Very powerful people. Well, perhaps it's because they were involved in a cult and they were trying to be alchemists, reaching beyond the barrier of male and female, right? That's their twisted mind view. They're Satanists. But remember, the people who run them are just about as twisted, because that person who runs them all is Satan, who believes in his own mind, his lower alter ego, that he is and there is none else, and everyone should bow down to him. Let's not ever forget that. This isn't some random good plot that Jesus Christ is also in cahoots with. Jesus knows about the lower ego, and he knows you cannot tame it, but he knows you cannot take the tares out without letting them all grow up together. And then when you can see clearly which is a tare and which is a wheat, then you have the harvest. You see, right at the time that Jesus came to the earth and he saw his brother Satan pulling off this extraordinary evil, he said, do what thou must do and do it quickly, because it was necessary for these things to take place. And today it's necessary that the man of sin be revealed. We've got to have the unveiling. We've got to take the veil off of this thing and go through death. And the liar is the only one that can kill you. You cannot die. You are the divine being. You have power over the devils and over mountains and trees to tell them to be thrown into the sea. Why, the angels of heaven will follow you around and make sure your foot doesn't stumble upon a stone. And they must obey your every word. So what could possibly kill you? What could possibly harm you? Nothing but a lie. Nothing but deception. And that comes by way of a bribe. And a bribe comes by way of ignorance. Because no one would do such evil if they knew it led to their own downturn and harm and degradation and defeat. They do it because they're deceived into thinking that they can get away with it. And everybody, every little child has to test their mommy and daddy. So it's something that's natural. It's part of the flesh, the instinctual nature, trial and error. We must go through it. Jesus had to come into the flesh and learn by the things in which he suffered. He knew he was going to die. For this reason, he came. But I want to read you this prophecy we talked about the other day. This is the real Joseph Smith, and this is one of his prophecies. I mean, all of his prophecies came true. And he had the most minute detail of everything that happened from the Civil War all the way down to our day. So I like this one because you can verify that the person who said this happened was there, and we have no reason to believe that he lied. It was published quite a bit. But it says, the next day the prophet came to our home, stopped in our carpenter shop, and stood by the turning lathe. I went and got my map for him. Now, he said, I will show you the travels of this people. Remember, this is before he died in 1844. And Joseph Smith, a lot of the things that happened with Joseph Smith has been forged and corrupted. One of the things I want to say here before we read this is Mormons today believe that Joseph Smith said that the New Jerusalem would be built in Missouri. Do you know he didn't say that? Well, actually he did. But do you know that Missouri was not the state of Missouri that we know of today? Which is why the town... Have you ever wondered, probably most of you haven't, but maybe Mormons have. Maybe in the back of your mind you didn't even know, or you weren't aware that you were wondering. Why would a town be called Far West, Missouri? I mean, maybe because it's far west in Missouri. But why, out of all the things they could have named it, Paradise or whatever, why were they saying Far West, Missouri? Because they weren't going to a town. No town existed. They were on their way somewhere, and they were going far west. Missouri isn't that far west, right? And it's not a very big state. But originally, the Louisiana Territory, which covered all the way through Mexico and New Mexico and up through the Rocky Mountains, it basically stopped right around the Rocky Mountains. Well, in somewhere around 1830, they changed the name of the Louisiana Territory to the Missouri Territory. And it became a state, but Missouri went far west. From where they were in Illinois, they weren't talking about going far west, just boop over the river. They were talking about Joseph Smith had already said, envisioned, he knew that his people would go, many of them would go far west to the other end of the territory of Missouri, which goes all the way to the Rocky Mountains, beyond Denver up in the mountains, and all the way down to Snowflake, Arizona, and down in through to the Mexico border. And he gave prophecies about what would happen when they get there, that the church would become apostate and lead them into powerful positions of authority in the government, and that the government would be hanging by a thread, the Constitution. But a group of individuals in the area down in the Snowflake, Arizona area, towards there and between there and the Mexico border, he said there would be a group that would finally have a community. They would gather out of the world and fulfill the United Order, which was what they called the having all things common of the early church in the first century. But let me read this. It says, he then showed our travels through Iowa. He said, here you will make a place for the winter, and here you will travel west until you come to the valley of the Great Salt Lake. You will build cities to the north and to the south. and to the east and to the west. And you will become a great and wealthy people in that land. But the United States will not receive you with the laws which deity desires you to live. And you will... Now, what is he talking about? Polygamy? No, Joseph Smith was not a polygamy. He died because he refused to allow that abomination in the church. And in another prophecy, he actually said that Brigham Young would lead the church to hell because of this polygamy thing. He swore on a Bible, if you believe he was a prophet, you'd have to believe, if he's a true prophet, he wouldn't lie, putting his hand on the Bible in a courtroom many times, saying he was not a polygamist and it was a damnable heresy. And he would never do such a thing. And his wife denied that he ever did it. His children denied that there were ever any other women around. There were no children born to such a union. And all of his supposed wives were all actually wives of Brigham Young. But what he's saying here, the United States will not receive you with the laws which deity desires you to live. He's talking about the United Order, to live in a community where we have all things common, getting out of the world, being separate from the world. Because he says, as you see here, as he goes on, he prophesies that the Mormon people would be very much in the world, and they would be full of powerful elites. But there would be a group of individuals that would get out of the world and fulfill the law of the United Order. And this is what the United States government wouldn't want them to do. And you will have to go to where the Nephites lost their power. Where the Nephites lost their power. Not Salt Lake. Because the people in Salt Lake are living in the world. They're not outside of the world. They're living in the world. They never fulfilled the law of the United Order. But you'll have to go to where the Nephites lost their power. They worked in the United Order for 166 years, and the saints have got to become proficient in the laws of deity before they can meet the Lord Jesus Christ. What laws? The laws of Moses? No, the laws of Jesus Christ. The community of having all things common, loving one another. So he says, you have to become proficient in the laws of deity before they can meet the Lord Jesus Christ. In other words, just before they meet Jesus Christ, or even the city of Enoch. He said he will not travel the shape of the horseshoe, for there we will await the action of the government. Placing his finger on the map, I should think about where Snowflake, Arizona is situated, or it could have been Mexico, he said. The government will not receive you with laws that deity design you to live, the United Order. And those who are desirous to live the laws of deity will have to go south. Not the people in Salt Lake City, the Mormon church. They don't go south. I mean, there are people in the Mormon church that have gone south, and there are people that have gone north, east, west, all over the world. But he's talking about a different group because he says, you will live to see men arise in power in the church who will seek to put down your friends. The friends of the United Order, the ones who go south. Your friends are the good people that he was talking to that lived near Snowflake, as you'll see here. So the church will put down your friends and the friends of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. The church, the LDS church, will put down the friends of the Lord Jesus Christ. Many will be hoisted because of their money and the worldly learning which they seem to be in possession of. The LDS church will have worldly learning and money. And many who are the true followers of the Lord and Savior will be cast down because of their poverty. There will be two great political parties in this country. That's interesting, because in Joseph Smith's day, there were more than two great powers. There was the Whig Party and other, the Federalists and so forth. But he predicted the two parties. And the two parties will go to war. And out of these two parties will spring another party, which will be the Independent American Party. Well, that's interesting. Now, these words were spoken before 1844, around 1843 or something. The United States will spend her strength and means warring in foreign lands until other nations will say, let's divide up the lands of the United States. Huh? Isn't that what they're doing right now? The New World Order? The UN coming in here and bringing in all these terrorists and stuff. And these Black Lives Matter and groups like Derek Brose's Anonymous, Scientology, splitting up the United States into different parties and groups and religions. And the United States will spend her strength and means warring in foreign lands. And it says, they'll divide up the United States. Then the people of the U.S. will unite and swear by the blood of their forefathers that the land shall not be divided. Then the country will go to war, and they will fight until one half of the United States Army will give up, and the rest will continue to struggle. They will keep on until they are very ragged and discouraged. He's talking about a civil war here, and almost ready to give up. When the boys from the mountains will rush forth in time to save the American army from defeat and ruin, and they will say, "Brethren, we are glad you have come. Give us men henceforth who can talk with deity. Then you will have friends, but you will save the country when its liberty hangs by a thread, as it were." Elsewhere he uses the word thread, hang by a thread. They translate it hair here. Friends, this idea, the boys from the mountains near Snowflake, Arizona, and the area where I live in Concho, and this western, southwestern, middle western part of New Mexico, and eastern, southeast, northeastern Arizona, and the Four Corners area. This is the land was at the other end, the far west of the Missouri Territory. And this is where he says the kingdom would be built, beginning at the place in the farthest reaches of the Missouri Territory in the Rocky Mountains. There would be the city of Zion built. And remember, all these other places that Joseph Smith talked about being a stake of Zion. What does he mean, a stake? Like a stake is when you have a tent, a tabernacle. And that's the tent of Zion. And its stakes is all over the United States. And have you ever noticed when Joseph Smith would say, Adam onde Amen, which means, and this is another thing we'll get into when we're going to be talking about Amun at the end, because this word Amen is Amun. And it's Adam onde Amen. Now, many people are trying to understand what this means. Onde is still a word we have today. It's and. Adam and Amun. We'll talk more about that at another time. But what I want to point out is that this place called Adam onde Amen was not somewhere in Iowa or Missouri, as people think. Adam onde Amen is the mountains. It's always called the mountains of Adam onde Amen. And so Adam dwelt all over the northern part of the United States, all the way down even into Mexico, because Enoch built Mexico City, his son, the seventh in line from Adam. But the place that Adam dwelt, or the mountains where Adam dwelt, is the Rocky Mountains. And the Olam Shinhai, or the eternal plains, that is where, perhaps when Joseph Smith stood in Nauvoo and in Missouri in that area, that is the plains of Olam Shinhai. The shine is the sun, and the Olam is eternal. And it was the plains of the eternal sun. But the Adam onde Amen is in the Rocky Mountains, friends. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go, guys. Been well over an hour now, and got to get this uploaded. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. May the Lord bless you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good one.